So now we're going to move on to a presentation by Hanne from VIVES about ecosystem services. It's looking at the value of ecosystem services, so this is really nicely linking to some of the talks we've heard about already. So over to you, Hanne.
So good morning, everyone. Thank you for the introduction, David. Before I'm going to talk about the services that are related to ecosystems, I would like to introduce you to the term ecosystem. Many of you already know what it is, but I saw yesterday in the Mentimeter that we have a very diverse public. So some of you will already know what it is, but for those who do not know it, I will explain it now. Okay. So an ecosystem, it's very basic. This is a typical definition of it. It's a complex of plants, animals, and organisms that interact with each other, and also with the environments. So an ecosystem, it has several sizes. It can be very small, like for example a pond, you can see here, with trees, fishes, plants, and so on. But it can be also very big, like an entire ocean basin. The entire ocean basin is the biggest ecosystem that exists on Earth. It has more than 500,000 species, so it can be big, yeah. But we are today going to talk about nature-based solutions, and in nature-based solutions you have as well ecosystems. And linked to those ecosystems in nature-based solutions we have the services. So now I'm moving forward to the services. Generally seen, there are four main ecosystem services. This is a classical theory that you see here, and today this is the framework of our research as well. So you have four different services. For those who do not know it yet, you can see it here in this illustration. So first of all, you have the provisioning ecosystem services. Those are the products obtained from ecosystems, for example, fish, wood, and clean water. Secondly, you have also cultural ecosystem services, and those are the non-material benefits like recreation and education. Thirdly, you have the regulating ecosystem services, and these include the services which regulate the ecological balance. So, for example, storage of carbon. And lastly, you have the supporting ecosystem services, and those are the services that are necessary for the production of all the other services. So, like, for example, biodiversity. So, remember this framework, because this is really the basis of our research. And if you put everything together, so you have the ecosystems, then you have the services, then you get this illustration. I'm showing you this because we are today going to talk about the values of systems, and you can see it here. So at the left, you see the green box, and it represents ecosystems with processes and functions. I'm not going to explain to you what processes and functions are because my time is limited. Deriving from those ecosystems, you have ecosystem services. And if you move forward to the box on the right, you can see the socio-economic systems. And it's there that we can find the benefits derived from the services, and we give them a value. So those are two separate things. So you have the benefits, and then we value the benefits. And if you go further, you see that management is mentioned and social responses. So it's clear that we have a big influence on the ecosystems and the services. And if we manage them very well, we have a better biodiversity, excuse me. And then we go back to the left. And if you can go up again, then the processes can move forward and get better. And then the loop is complete. So the key message is that we need to manage everything very well, and then we can keep on going, and we can get more services out of the ecosystems. This slide represents, it's a graph from Google. So Google, they digitize everything they see. And like you can see here, this graph represents all the publications that are mentioned in Google about ecosystem services and nature-based solutions. So it tracks everything. And like you can see from 1995, it started to increase. So it's rather a new topic, ecosystem services, especially related to nature-based solutions. And like you can see at the end, like in 2019, it increases very well. Then we had a small decline, and then it increased again. So the key message is it's a very new topic, and we need to keep on going, and we need to research much more. But there's still a problem statement. Ecosystems, they are still undervalued. Even though we do a lot of research, we still need to do much more, and that's the reason why they're also undervalued. Another reason is that they provide benefits to external persons who are not directly paying for these. So that's normal that people don't pay attention to such types of products. Another problem is that we mismanage many of them, and it makes them not sustainable. So we need to have a solution for that by, for example, giving them a value. So remember the illustration 2 slides back, that we can get benefits and value out of ecosystems. Well, that's what we need to do. We need to give them another monetary value, for example, and it makes them more visible because money, everybody knows the language of money, so that's easy to understand. So it's a manner to communicate between several stakeholders, and it also increases the long-term impact by better deploying resources. But it's very challenging. The approach we did in SARCC is the ecosystem approach. We added a holistic research lens to it. Holism is already mentioned 2 days ago, I think, or yesterday, I'm not sure anymore. For those who do not know what holism is, this slide represents this very well. So holism is that you study the totality of everything. You're not looking to one specific aspect of an environment or a landscape, but you look at all of them. And therefore, we did a holistic approach because we analyzed everything. So the 4 main ecosystem services categories that I showed you, we analyzed them, all of them. Because everyone looks different to ecosystem services, and we have so many different stakeholders. Each city is so different, and we wanted to address answers to policy, social-cultural members, and also economical members. But that requires a lot of interdisciplinarity research. At the bottom you can see actually a small illustration I almost forgot. It's in the theme of the season, then football. But the thing is that I want to show you here is that you need to look at the whole, just not at one specific point of the football, but really need to see it as a whole, and then you see the complete picture. So that's a bit the thing about holism. Look at the whole. The ecosystem approach, we use proxies to value those services. What is a proxy? It's an approximation of the true value, and you can do that in 3 ways. First of all, you can give a monetary value. That's the most common way of expressing value. Second of all, you can do a qualitative approximation, and a quantitative approximation is the third one. You can do that by, you can go in the field and measure everything, but there also exist some scientific tools, and that's very useful. And those tools, they have 3 different types of analysis, like for example retrospective, and that means that you go back to the nature-based solutions, so you analyze them when they are already implemented. Simultaneously is that you analyze them while they are implemented, and then you have prospective, and that's that you're going to analyze them before they are implemented. On this slide, you can see some examples of proxies that we analyzed. It's really a very short list that you see here because the list is very long, but I cannot explain all of them to you. So I will just give some examples on how we calculated everything. For example, you see here the 4th one, the willingness to pay. The willingness to pay is a benefit that is deriving from a cultural ecosystem service, and it's the willingness to pay for green infrastructure. And we put an amount of euro or pound on that, and then you can see how much euro or pound people want to pay to have green in their area. Tools can calculate that with a bunch of data, like for example the number of local people that are using green infrastructure, the profile of types of activity, and so on. So yeah, it's really about calculations and formulas and so on. So it's very complex, but you can find that all in the guides of the tools. So that's useful. Another one is, for example, the last one, the avoided cost for sand cleaning. That's a very important one for the Belgian coast. Yeah, the benefit avoiding sand cleaning, yeah, it's estimated by, for example, by the yearly cost for cleaning, and then you also measure the length of the dunes and so on. So it's again about formulas, and then you can put a number on that. So it's a regulating ecosystem service. Within SARCC, we wanted to create a replicable method for other pilots and other coastal regions. We did that by following 5 steps. But I also want to say we tested this methodology in the 3 Belgian pilots because we are close to them and we can get really easily data. But the main aim is that we can reproduce that methodology for other pilots as well. In the first step, we compiled a list of tools. In total, we analyzed 30 tools, so digital tools from different universities, institutions, and so on. And out of that, we selected the right ones for nature-based solutions, especially linked to coastal regions. After that, of course, we gathered the data, we put that in the tools, and then we needed to interpret the results. In this slide, you can see the tools we analyzed. You can see some of them. It's not complete here, this slide. But in total, like I said, we analyzed 30 of them. And out of this package, we selected 2 of them. And how did we do that? We had a bunch of criteria, and then we selected, for example, is it free to use? Because that's very important. If it is free, everyone can use it, of course. Is it easy to use? How long does it take to complete the tool and get the results of the ecosystem services and so on? And out of that, we selected 2 ones, GI, VAL, and BEST. They are both from the UK. And yeah, we selected those. After that, we needed to gather data. That's quite a process, the gathering of data, and we did that with interviews. We had also a lot of input from the pilot managers. We had also help from our students who did internships and also field research and so on. And at the bottom, you can see the 3 pilots we tested. So Oostende at the left, the Middelkerke at the right, and Berghe in the middle. In this slide, you can see a small, insight. You can see small insights into our results for the 3 pilots. So here you can see, especially the benefits in numbers. So that's very interesting, I think. For example, in Oostende, you see that the willingness to pay for green coming from tourists is €5.3 a year. That's a lot. If you compare it with the residents, that's only €1.67 a year. So it's a nice insight in green infrastructure. Another one is, for example, that the avoided cost for sand cleaning in Oostende is €11,273 a year. So that's also a lot. But and then if you look at, for example, 10 years, then the number gets always bigger and bigger. And in Middelkerke, we see actually the same. The avoided cost for sand cleaning is there 38,000. I see Steen is not here anymore. That's a number for him. So that's a lot. It's much more than in Oostende, so that's good. We have also, for example, a reduced mortality of 100,067. So that's also a lot, and so on. And then if we move to Berghe, we can see, for example, that the land and property values, they are expected to increase with €5.96 million. So that's, again, a lot. But I need to say, these numbers that you see here, they are an underestimation. Because there are so many factors we need to incorporate, so we chose for the underestimation. So in reality, it's probably a bit higher. But we are very careful with these numbers, so we chose for the underestimation. Okay, I have still 30 seconds, I see. So I wanted to progress to the key messages. The valuing ecosystem services, that's very useful to inform decision processes, of course. It's already mentioned many times during this conference. I also think a holistic view is very important, because then you can approach a wider audience, because we have so many stakeholders at our coasts who have all a different perspective on the coastal regions. Of course, ecosystems, calculating ecosystems is still a developing area. You remember the graph that I showed? It's still increasing, and I think it will increase for many years to come. So we still need to learn a lot. Also, a really important one is that services are not static. Landscapes, they constantly develop, and they are very dynamic, because the space, the time, and the scale, it constantly changes because of the interaction with people, the action and the interaction of people and the environment. So it's very hard to put a number on that, but we tried with this methodology. And a nice insight is also that we had a small validation from the monitoring and evaluation survey from the JET team, the joint evaluation team. But Flavia will tell something more about that. But I have already two things we validated, and that's, for example, the capturing of sand increases. That's also something you found in your scores, and also the economical quality increases. But I'm not going to say anything more about that, so that's for Flavia. Thank you.